pages of history are full of traces of mankind's endless struggle, from ancient warriors armed with shields and swords, to the roar of steel-armored tanks, to the modern armies advancing at the speed of sky-high jets. Every era had its own unique art of war, its own unique destruction. However, the only thing that did not change was the spirit of struggle and the will of man to survive. Throughout the ages, technologies evolved, the face of war changed, but the pain, sacrifice, and sometimes the meaninglessness behind war remained the same. Armored giants rising on the relentless waves of the seas, with their cannons that spit fire and broke through enemy lines, instilled fear in the depths of the oceans. These conflicts that echoed in the waters of history determined the fate of not only ships, but also nations. Every cannon shot, every flame whispered the story of a relentless struggle, strategy, and courage given at sea. However, war was not always fought with giant armies or steel monsters, sometimes with the sharp aim of a rifle, sometimes with the roar of a cannon. It became the scene of one-on-one struggles. These old weapons were not just metal and wood. Each one, the moment it was fired, carried hope, fear, and determination. They witnessed the most primitive, most personal forms of war, and war was not just the story of weapons, but of people. In the dusty lands of trenches, in the ruins of ruined cities, soldiers whose youth had not yet faded carried the weight of war on their shoulders. Next to them stood old commanders bearing the marks of experience and fatigue. In their eyes was a hope for tomorrow, a regret for the past, and a cruel reality for today. The experience of one generation was silently passed on to the next, pain, lessons, and the desire to survive. In these eyes lay the never-ending legacy of war that lasted for generations. That innocence in the eyes of the young intersected with the tired gaze of a general who had seen and experienced everything, who had been mired in the mud of war. This was not just a momentary encounter, but a reflection of history. On one side, a hope for the future, on the other, the heavy burden of the past. War has always driven young people to the front, stealing their lives and hopes. But this meeting was also a solidarity, a resistance, and a transfer of heritage. And now the new face of war is before us in all its glory. Jets tearing the skies, tanks shaking the land, and the relentless advance of human power. This struggle that has lasted for centuries is perhaps a cycle that will never end. But behind every explosion, every bullet, we as humanity have a quest, the quest for peace and tranquility.